I usually don't make videos that are this unscripted. I like to have a sort of outline to talk about, but there's a lot of things that I want to cover in this video, and really the only way I can do it is by having a whole bunch of tabs on my internet browser open so I can kind of go through them and tell you about the topic, which is why the TCG and the OCG ban lists are different. Now, this has always been a topic on people's mind, especially recently, and by recently, I mean very recently, when the OCG ban list got announced or leaked, I think. I don't think it, or was it announced? I don't know. Doesn't matter. The OCG ban list is out, and it hits a lot of decks that people really hate right now, so it hits pretty much all of the True Draco cards, it hits pretty much all the Dinosaur cards as well, and Zoo is already neutered in their format, so it hit almost every deck that people are having problems with, and this always brings the question whenever the OCG ban list gets announced, man, why doesn't the TCG share lists with them? That's so dumb. OCG gets their packs first. They get their hits faster than we do. And that is true as well, especially in the past year. The OCG has gotten way more ban lists just in quantity compared to the TCG. And I can see why people are angry, and I can sort of understand that. But what they have to remember, what many of you may not know, is that for the majority of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the OCG and the TCG ban lists were actually the same. And that was not good. It was not good at all. And in this video, I'm going to explore that a little bit by going through not only the September 2013 ban list, which was the first ban list that actually separated the OCG and TCG in a significant way, and then I'm going to talk about the, I'm also going to talk about the 2012 March ban list, which was sort of, I think, the tipping point for a lot of people, and is a perfect example of why the list should be separate. Now, I know you may not agree with my opinions here, and they are just opinions, but I wanted to go through the timeline so you guys have a better understanding at why these lists are separate and why, I mean, really, why they need to be separate. I know it's frustrating waiting for Konami to release a TCG ban list, and I want a ban list more than anyone else. Well, not more than anyone else, but I want a ban list really bad. But also, you have to understand that the game is better off when the ban lists are separate. So let's go through a couple things here. First of all, we're going to take a look at Photon Shockwave. Now, Photon Shockwave, as you can see here, I'm on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikia. It came out in North America on November 2011. And the important thing that you have to know if you didn't play back then is that back then the TCG exclusives weren't entire archetypes, they just supported the cards in the set. So if you scroll all the way down here, and by the way, Photon Shockwave is a set that had Rescue Rabbit and Evolves Arlagia, and this is basically the Dino Rabbit set. Tour Guide wasn't in this set, that was an Extreme Victory 2 sets before. But if we scroll down here, you can see 80 to, I think 89 or 90 are the TCG exclusives. The big ones that I want to point out here are Wind Up Zenmaines, Evolves Ardolka, and Wind Up Rabbit. Now, those cards were very powerful when they were released. Wind Up Rabbit became a little better in the next set, but all those cards were definitely relevant eventually, and were all very expensive eventually. Dolka was a staple in Dino Rabbit and made the Dino Rabbit in the TCG much more effective than the one in the OCG. Not only did we have Dolka, which was much more effective at dealing with multiple threats than Lagia was, we also had Tour Guide, which is something that OCG just didn't have. Wind Up Zenmaines was possibly one of the most impactful rank 3s in the entire game, and was, I mean, $60 to $90 for months after it was released. And you can see here that there aren't new archetypes, it's just things supporting the cards in the set. Now flip over to the next set, which is Order of Chaos. You can see the release is January 14th through 15th, 2012. And we scroll down here, and this is a set, by the way, that had Insectors in it, and it had all the good windups. You can see we have Windup Rat is in here. That's like the main one. But we keep scrolling down here, keep scrolling down. And we get to the TCG exclusives. Once again, those are 81 through 89. Yeah, so that was in the last one too. And the really big standouts here are not only Insector, Hopper, and Tour Bus, but the biggest one is Wind Up Shark. Now, if you weren't playing back then, let me just tell you that at this time, Dino Rabbit wasn't the best deck, but it was played a lot. Tengu Plants were still the most popular deck, especially by a lot of the pro players. And but Windups and Insectors were definitely really good. Insectors were really feared back in the day. Insector Hornet was just ridiculous. Insector Dragonfly was crazy. But Wind Up Shark really revolutionized the wind up strategy. Just for a moment, imagine the OCG Order of Chaos format. So they don't have Tour Guide. They don't have Dolka. They don't have Wind Up Shark. They don't have Wind Up Rabbit. They don't have Wind Up Zen Mains. They don't have all these cards that really make two decks quite powerful. The Wind Up deck just didn't exist, to my knowledge, in the OCG, and if it did, it definitely wasn't as popular as it was here, where you were getting hand looped like every game, and hand traps like Effect Failure Max C were just necessary evils against that deck, not to mention the control aspect of Dino Rabbit, which just made, back in the day, unbreakable boards. I mean, your best opening was a Rescue Rabbit first turn into a Tour Guide next turn. That was nearly impossible for a lot of rogue decks to deal with, and most competitive decks for that matter if they went first. So you have two decks that are really big in the TCG, and then we get a ban list, and let's take a look here. Now, I do technically have both the here's the OCG one, and then here's the TCG ban list open, but both these lists are the exact same, and because that's back, this was the last list when they were the same. We can take a look here and what got hit. Well, the main things that got hit were all the plant monsters. So Glow Up Bulb and Spore were banned, Reborn Tengu to 2, Reborn Tengu to 2, and some other hits, but the surprising ones are that TG Striker and the Agent of Mystery Earth went from unlimited to limited. Now, it might be surprising to TCG players because while agents were good, TG agents really weren't being played. Wind-ups and Dino Rabbit were definitely more popular than either of the agent or the TG agent variant, and yet none of those cards are on the ban list. The reason for that is that back when the lists were combined, and this would basically be how it was for that whole decade, the hits were only determined by the OCG format. And that is really apparent here because Tour Guide isn't on this list, Rescue Rabbit isn't on this list, Wind Up Hunter isn't on this list, Wind Up Shark isn't on this list, Wind Up Zen Maid isn't on this list, Wind Up Zen Carrier isn't on this list. None of those cards are on this list, and yet randomly TG Striker and Agent of Mystery Earth are. And that's because in the OCG, when they don't have Dino Rabbit and they don't have Wind-Ups at full power, they're playing TG agents. And when you combine the OCG list and the TCG list, and you only base them off the OCG hits, which is what Konami did for many years, and Upper Deck, I guess, back in the day, there's a problem, because this ban list in the TCG basically only hit Six Samurai sort of by having Sheen Smoke Signal. Well, I guess, sorry, not Six Samurais, because that went from limited to semi-limited. My apologies. Let me rewind here. It only really hit plants, and this, from the TCG perspective, was Konami's way of neutering plants so that the Exceed decks could become meta. And that's literally what happened. After this list, Dino Rabbit, Wind-Ups, and Inzectors were super annoying and were almost always the top decks of every single tournament. And no one was playing agents and TGs. That just wasn't a thing. No one was playing, like, TG Striker was limited. TG Striker was limited in a format with triple Wind Up Shark, triple Tour Guide, triple Rescue Rabbit, and it was like of all cards, and people were furious. I wasn't super competitive into the game, but I definitely was playing the game back then, and people were really mad that none of the TCG relevant decks besides plants got hit. And it just looked like Konami making a bunch of hits to push product, which is another debate for another time. But people were mad, very mad. And it just makes me wonder then why people want to go back to this situation. This is not good. This is not the best way to run the list. And when 2013 of September rolled, or September of 2013 rolled around, you have a situation, people are pissed. There was a boycott YCS Toronto website that was up because people were angry. So this is coming right off of the national tournament, where Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks were basically the only playable decks, and people wanted revolution, basically. They wanted a lot of changes, and they wanted them now, and they were going to boycott YCS Toronto if that didn't happen. And people were pissed that the OCG is only making changes based on their format, although at the time, the OCG format and the TCG format were pretty close because they were just Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks. But Konami kind of dropped the bomb on us, and that was, the lists are separate September 2013 forward up until now, and for this foreseeable future, because we're so far apart at this point, they're completely different. And the September 2013 list was really important as well. I don't know the exact number of hits on it, but I believe it was the most number of hits on a ban list ever. There were so many cards that changed on this list, and we'll kind of go through here. What I have up now is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization article, and I think there's actually one mistake in here, but that's not super important. But basically, what this shows is the differences in ban lists that were from September. So there were a lot of overlap cards, like the Baby Rulers were on there, and Spellbook of Judgment was obviously on there, but there's also a lot of hits that weren't on each other's list. So if we just briefly look at the Forbidden cards, OCG only banned 2 different cards that we didn't, where we banned a whole slew of things. This is actually when Elemental Hero Stratos got banned, RIP Stratos. You have like Zen Maid, you have Shockmaster, all these cards that Solemn Judgment, Pot of Avarice, Monster Born, Heavy Storm, stuff like that, Self-Destruct Button. All these cards were on our list, but they weren't on theirs. The changes don't stop there, though. If you go down to this is the limited cards. This is all the OCG ones, and they have like Abyss TS, and their Stratos is limited, not forbidden. And then you scroll down here, you get to the TCG list. We got like a whole bunch of other random stuff. White Up Magician, Rescue Rabbit. Our Magician of Faith is limited, not theirs. Theirs is forbidden. And then you keep scrolling down, go to the OCG unlimited or semi-limited here. They have like some zombie stuff, malicious, but we take malicious off the list because we get Stratos banned. So that's a big difference here. Is that one reason Stratos was banned? This is just an aside. Is that by banning Stratos, you could take cards like Destiny Hero Malicious and A Hero Lives and Emergency Call off the list. But we keep going down. You see a lot of trap cards. We got Mere Forest, Deep Prison, semi-limited. Go down to the unlimits. You can see Japan unlimits just a whole bunch of stuff, or stuff stays unlimited compared to ours. They have self-destruct button still in the game. They have Spellbook of Fate still in the game at 3 copies. All these good trap cards, because like Eradicator Epidemic Virus was on our list as limited, I believe. Compulse was unlimited, and now it's limited on our list, where we have just basically we take the zombies and the hero cards off of the list. And that's a whole bunch of changes, and I know it's a lot to sort of take in here, but this was a really important moment, because after this, the TCG and the OCG have never shared a ban list. Now, there's been a couple different times where just coincidentally we hit the same cards, but there's basically no communication between the TCG and the OCG, which is probably not a good thing, but on ban lists, I think it's actually a positive thing. And I know it's going to be really hard to convince a lot of viewers that this is a good thing unless you played back in 2012, 2011 time, because it's not good when you see cards that aren't affecting the TCG get limited and cards that are affecting the TCG just not show up on the list. Now, I think that Konami might not have the best practices with lists right now as far as not telling us when they're going to happen, not communicating why they make the changes that they make, but I do want to say from the bottom of my heart, in my mind, really, the TCG and the OCG list should not be the same. I can tell you that there's no unicorn list here where it hits the things that are affecting the TCG and the OCG. That's just not going to happen. No one's going to spend that kind of time. And personally, and I think if you really put your mind to it, you'll realize that having slower TCG lists that actually affect what's happening in our format are better than faster OCG lists that have very little impact or sort of misguided impact on the TCG format. And hopefully going through here and going through the timeline, going through the history a bit of what made the 2013, 2012 ban list so significant, made you realize that no, the lists don't need to be together. But I realize this is going to be a very polarizing video. Probably should have said at the beginning. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your comments. Obviously, you know all of my thoughts and comments, but I do want to hear yours. Given all of this information, if you watched through this video, if you still think they should be together, understanding that there's no unicorn list that actually hits what's affecting both formats, and that most likely a combined list will only work with what's hitting or what needs to be hit in the OCG format. All those things considered, if you still think the list should be together, please let me know why, because I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Anyway, though, that's about going to wrap it up. Sorry for the little more discombobulated video here. It's not my usual polish, but I just so many tabs that I want to go through here. But yeah, I will see you guys later. Let me know in the comments what you think. Bye.